Hello and welcome to TVB News. 5 trustees, including Cardinal Joseph Zen and the secretary of a now defunct relief fund for protesters, have been convicted of failing to register the fund as a society under the society's ordinance. They were fined up to $4,000 each. Jackie Lin reports.
Appearing at the West Kowloon Magistrates Court today were barrister Margaret Ng, former lawmaker Sid Ho, singer-activist Denise Ho, scholar Hui Po Kung, and 90-year-old Cardinal Joseph Zhang. They were the trustees of the now-defunct 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund, which was founded at the start of the city's mass anti-government protests in 2019, with the aim of providing financial support for arrested or injured protesters. Along with the fund secretary Si Qing-wei, the trustees were charged with failing to register the fund as a society between July 2019 and October 2021. All pleaded not guilty. Handing down the verdict, Principal Magistrate Ada Yim ruled the fund had political objectives, and thus it was not established solely for charitable purposes. Considering the fund is an organization, the judge said the trustees had the duty to register it as a society within a month, but failed to do so. She added the trustees were important decision makers of the fund and could be seen as its office bearers or committee members sharing common political ideals and goals in the group. They include its secretariat Si Qing-wei, who shouldn't be seen as an independent contractor because he had the authority to express his views on the uses of the funds, Yim said. With that, the 5 trustees were fined $4,000. The fund secretary Si Qing-wei was fined $2,500.
It is the first time ever that anyone had to face a charge under society's ordinance for failing to register. So the consequence, the effect to other people who are associated together to do one thing or another and what will happen to them is very important.
Meanwhile, the 90-year-old retired Bishop Cardinal Joseph Zen, who's also a vocal advocate for democracy in Hong Kong, said his case should not be linked with the city's religious freedoms. Under the society's ordinance, local organizations must apply for registration or an exemption from registration within a month of its establishment. Those who fail to do so face a fine of up to $10,000 upon first conviction. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The High Court had previously agreed to permit the use of a foreign lawyer in the national security law-related trial of Next Digital founder Jimmy Lai. However, the Secretary for Justice objected to the decision and appealed, and after earlier attempts to do so were rejected, his appeal reached the Court of Final Appeal today. After the hearing, the city's highest court said it will reserve its decision on whether the overseas barrister will represent the media mogul. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Attending today's hearing was Timothy Owen himself, the King's Counsel from the UK, whom the Secretary for Justice seeks to bar from representing Next Digital founder Jimmy Lai in his upcoming national security trial. Today's hearing is the latest appeal by the Secretary for Justice after attempts in the lower courts. The SJ's application for leave to appeal was heard by Chief Justice Andrew Cheung and permanent judges Roberto Ribeiro and Joseph Falk, while the Secretary for Justice was represented by former Secretary for Justice Rimsky-Yoon. Yoon noted that Lai's trial will be the first national security trial to employ an overseas legal practitioner and stressed the uniqueness of the national security law requires lawyers with ample experience with the legislation. Yoon also said the court should consider the case as a matter of general public interest. Senior counsel Robert Pang, who argued for the admission of Owen, said the national security law should not be above the basic law, emphasizing that through one country, two systems, overseas lawyers have much to contribute to the city's courts. Chief Justice Andrew Cheung said the High Court and the Appeal Court have already reviewed guidelines for hiring non-local lawyers, adding that their involvement in the trial will help develop the philosophy of law. Permanent Judge Roberto Ribeiro believes the SJ hopes to use this case as a precedent to bar all overseas lawyers from participating in any cases surrounding the national security law.
After listening to arguments from both sides, the Court of Final Appeal decided to reserve its determination on the Secretary of Justice's appeal. with a written statement issued on next Monday. The determination on whether Timothy Owen will represent Lai may affect the prospect of overseas lawyers representing cases involving the national security law in the future. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The city reported 8,878 new COVID cases, down slightly from yesterday's tally. According to the Center for Health Protection, 8,316 of the infections were locally acquired and 562 of them imported. 16 more coronavirus patients succumbed to the virus. So far, 10,450 people have died from COVID in Hong Kong during the fifth wave of the pandemic. The CHP has urged the community to continue to comply with social distancing measures in order to contain the spread of the virus. The mainland logged over 32,000 new locally acquired COVID cases for the second day in a row. With that, authorities in Guangzhou's Liwan district are scrambling to beef up its infection control measures. Jackie Lin reports.
8,476 new cases were reported in Guangdong province today. 94% hailed from its provincial capital, Guangzhou. Liwan district turbocharged measures to curb the spread of the virus, including blitzes of lockdowns at local neighborhoods. Surveillance cameras are installed at every entrance and exit, with security guards stationing in these controlled areas round the clock. Also, some thousand-strong caseloads in Beijing, which registered 1,860 new infections. 400 of them were sussed out from mass COVID testing. This Hong Kong student at Peking University said with COVID cases reported in her school, she has much fewer opportunities to venture out of the campus. Meanwhile, neighboring Hebei logged 3,375 cases, with a bulk from Shijiazhuang City. Shanghai reported 86 cases. Shanghai Disneyland is set to reopen on Friday. All visitors will need to provide negative PCR test results done within 48 hours. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
On the mainland, pop star Chris Wu has been sentenced to 13 years in jail for sex crimes. He has also been fined 600 million yuan for tax evasion. The local court in Beijing said investigations showed that the Chinese-Canadian actor Wu Yifan raped 3 women from November to December 2020. The court found him guilty of rape and the crime of assembling a crowd to engage in sexual promiscuity. Wu will also be deported after serving the jail term. Officials from the Canadian Embassy in China attended the sentencing. Wu shot to fame as a member of K-pop boy band EXO before leaving the group in 2014 to launch a solo career as a singer, actor, and variety show judge on the mainland. Following the relaxation of travel restrictions, the airport authority said around 140 flights have been using the new third runway each day. Chief Secretary Eric Chan said the authority's chairman, Jack So, attended the runway's launching ceremony today. Since the third runway started operations back in early July, it has served some 11,000 flights. The authority said other related work, such as the expansion of Terminal 2 and the construction of a new concourse, are expected to be completed by 2024. Representatives of the city's taxi industry submitted an application to the government to raise fares by $6 today. The industry proposed 2 options to the Transportation Department: to increase the flagfall price by $3 for 2 consecutive years, or a one-time raise of $6 in the first or second quarter next year. According to Chow Kwok-kung, chairman of the Hong Kong Taxi and Public Light Bus Association, 19 taxi groups have reached a consensus on the plan. Chow hopes that as there is an outflow of taxi drivers in the city, the fare rise could attract more people to work in the industry. Welcome back. In Britain, thousands of nurses will go on strike on December 15th and 20th for more pay. That's the latest in a winter of industrial action that also involves the rail, maritime, and transport sectors, as well as teachers and postal workers. Tracy Furness has more.
Chukwudubum Ifeaduna, a nurse in the south of England, loves his job, but next month he will walk out for 2 days as part of British nurses' biggest ever strike. He said some staff are using food banks at the moment and he can't afford to provide for his kids.
I've had to cut down on a lot of things with the kids, which I can't afford to provide for them because of the high cost of living. So it's really, really tough for everyone, not just myself, my colleagues out there. You've got few nurses leaving as well to go and work in supermarkets because they will be paid better.
The industrial action on December 15th and 20th is unprecedented in the British Nursing Union's 106-year history. Patricia Marcus, director of the Royal College of Nursing Union in England, said the government must listen.
And this is not something that nurses do at the drop of a hat. Our actual ask is for this year, for 2022, is a pay rise for our members of the rate of inflation plus 5%. The current time is around 17.5%. And that essentially is the amount by which our members' pay has fallen behind how much it was worth 10 years ago.
Marcus said without higher pay, nurses will continue to leave the profession. Meanwhile, the head of a major UK transport workers union said he held positive talks with Transport Secretary Mark Harper Thursday, but refused to call off further rail strikes.
If we call off the strikes, we'll never get a settlement. We did that 2 weeks ago. We've changed our dates in response to public opinion. When the Queen passed away, when we had the Poppy Day, we've done other things. We have not had a strike for 7 weeks, and nothing has happened.
On Tuesday, the union announced that more than 40,000 rail workers will stage fresh strikes in December and January, disrupting travel during the busy festive season. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the military alliance will not back down its support for Ukraine. But across the country, many are still without electricity after Ukraine was pounded by Russian airstrikes targeting energy facilities. This report from NBC News.
When Russian forces fired a barrage of missiles at Ukraine, the impact was instantaneous. Fear and then darkness. Russia's Ministry of Defense claims Wednesday's attack targeted the military control system of Ukraine and energy facilities related to it. But the people now combing through the rubble, waiting to collect water and looking for warmth, are civilians in survival mode.
We don't have cell phone coverage, we don't have internet. We have a truck with humanitarian aid coming to Kharkiv. We can't get in touch with people in the warehouse.
This is a frantic effort to turn the basement of a church into a warming center. Ultimately, all of this, it won't be necessarily warm, but the goal is that it will be bearable. Right now, this stove, it is the only source of warmth in this basement. Strength and health are enough to get through these moments, Ahana tells us. Survive and then remember it, like a bad dream. Out of the darkness and bitter cold, Ukrainians like Ahana are coming together and finding strength. There is more heartfulness, she says. We all get together, eat, cook on a fire, look at the Ukrainian night at the starry sky, and I think that this makes us stronger. Ellison Barber, NBC News, Kharkiv, Ukraine.
During an emergency meeting on Thursday, energy ministers from European Union member states failed to agree on the European Commission's proposal to cap the price of imported gas. Daniel Rell tells us more.
The European Union remains divided over capping imported gas after an emergency meeting failed to find consensus over the European Commission's proposed threshold for an imported gas safety price ceiling. The Commission suggested threshold would kick in if prices exceeded €275 per megawatt hour for 2 weeks, and if they were €58 higher than the price for liquefied natural gas on world markets.
We were bound by very concrete instructions delivered based on these requirements that our market correction mechanism will not jeopardize the security of supply concerns here in the European Union, but also allows the intra-EU flows.
Greek Energy Minister Konstantinos Krekas said setting a ceiling at €275 is not actually a ceiling and called for a cap that could go as low as €150. Nations such as Greece, Spain, Belgium, France and Poland are demanding cheaper gas to ease household bills. Others, like Germany and the Netherlands, are insisting supplies are at risk if a cap stops EU countries from buying gas above a certain price. The inability to find a compromise has also delayed plans for joint gas purchases and a solidarity mechanism to help the hardest-hit member states. Another emergency meeting has now been set for December 13th. The deadlock comes with the bloc battling record-high energy prices which have been prompted by Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. Dan Morell, TVB News.
The British government has ordered its departments to stop installing Chinese-linked surveillance cameras at sensitive buildings yesterday, citing security risks. Beijing said that it would defend the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies. According to Beijing's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning, China is strongly opposed to some people's moves in overstretching the concept of national security to restrict Chinese enterprises. The British directive came months after dozens of UK lawmakers called for a ban on the sale and use of security cameras made by Hikvision and Dahua. That was over privacy fears and concerns of their products being linked to human rights abuses in China. Hikvision and Dahua are two partly state-owned Chinese firms. And back here in Hong Kong, doctors and parents of a 4-month-old girl who is in desperate need of a heart transplant made an urgent appeal for a heart donation. The Hong Kong Children's Hospital said the girl is suffering from dilated cardiomyopathy, a condition in which the heart becomes enlarged and cannot pump blood effectively. The baby's doctors said she's been put on a ventilator and is currently in critical condition. They said the heart should come from a brain-dead child who's under 13 kilograms. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.